The first Football at 4 of 2024. Adam Caplan's here from Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms and on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Mike Gill, Ryan Rothstein. Our on-site producer is Danny Ryan. We are live at the Gallery Bar Booking Games at Ocean Casino Resort here in Atlantic City as we start off 2024. Holy mackerel, a lot different than the way 2023 started for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Adam Caplan is set to join us to talk a little bit more about it. We'll start off with a Happy New Year to you, Adam, and welcome back in 2024, my friend. How are you?
Guys, good to be with you, Happy New Year to you and your listeners, Mike, on the station. And I have so many friends who are Eagle season ticket holders. They are not happy. Because they text me during games to ask me what's going on and why is this happening. And I got to be honest with you, I did not think they would lose that game. Even in the fourth quarter when it started slipping away, I'm like, there's no way the Cardinals are winning this game. It's just not going to happen. And it did. And I'm dumbfounded, Mike. I'm in awe in a bad way. I'm just still in shock that they could lose to a lowly team like that. I mean, I said this on our pregame show. The Cardinals started 8 players on defense who were backups and only had 3 starters left, and the Eagles still lost. Offensively, several starters out. They still lost. You guys are, Mike, you're a little bit older than probably the guys who work with you. You might remember the struggles the Eagles had when they were good in the mid to early 90s. And they would lose to the Cardinals at home where they'd underachieve and play a close game. This felt like that, where everyone and their mother thought the Eagles would blow them out or clearly win, and they came up short.
I tweeted this out. Arizona, remember when they were in the NFC East? Well, they've had a hand in the NFC East this year. They beat Dallas, and that looked like the Dallas one that was going to kind of knock them out of it. Well, then they answered it by beating Philadelphia, and that one will likely be the one that knocks Philly out of winning the NFC East. But let's talk about the worst loss of the season here, Adam, and their issues on offense. Let's start with what we're seeing as the problems, basically underachieving. The talent they have on offense, we should not be having these issues every single week.
Yeah, Mike, I would say this. It's not like they had the ball a lot because their defense was so bad they couldn't get off the field. The exact opposite of what you would think if you're being logical about it. They did have a bunch of scoring drives, but the thing that is troubling, Mike, and we'll talk to Greg Cosell and Jason Avant on this on our pregame show. I'm sure Greg and Clay Harbor will probably talk about this for the show that I believe drops Thursday, and Quentin Michael and Jason Avant will talk about it. I don't understand the lack of explosive plays. Mike, the biggest play was only 23 yards. Think about this, guys. They're starting their 5th and 6th corners, Mike, okay? Now, I know Gannon did some things because he knows the Eagles' offense. The lack of explosive plays downfield, which has, by the way, been a problem for several weeks. This is not new. You saw against Seattle was a problem. I don't quite understand that. Yeah, did they move the ball fairly well the last 2 weeks? Sure, they did. But the lack of explosive plays, look, their offense does not look the same like last season. We're not seeing the backs being used. We've talked about this so many times this season on explosive plays. Where does that come in? DeAndre Swift, who, by the way, looks really good. He went over 1,000 yards for the season as a rusher. Where is Swift in the pass game? 1 catch for 5 yards? There's no diversity in this passing game at all. See, I know Sirianni said this weeks ago, the top 3 guys have to get the football. But we knew that. That's not a secret. But how do you diversify your pass game when teams are figuring out where the ball's going to? You gotta spread it around a little bit. Get the backs involved. Now, Gain will have some checkdowns, big deal, no explosive plays. No, Hurts was efficient. He didn't play badly. But again, he only threw for 167 yards, Mike. Lack of explosive plays downfield.
How do you quantify, Adam, the play selection? Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni. I mean, if you are handing out blame for what would be play selection, do you blame Sirianni more, or is this a Brian Johnson is not up to the task?
Here's the thing on that, and I know people are questioning Brian Johnson about him as a play caller and the offensive coordinator. Yes, it's Sirianni's scheme. They're running similar plays to they did last season, but you notice that players are not getting as open as they were last season. They're not getting the spacing that they were getting last year. We know how bad of a bubble screen team. I kind of went off on this on my show with Mosher, one of the shows that we did recently where I just let them have it for just not seeing things that have to be to get done, and they're not doing it sometimes. Now, I'm not absolving Hurts. Hurts has regressed this season. It's not, and I understand as a play caller, you have to call plays that you think the quarterback could execute. That's part of this, which is being very fair here. Our job is to be fair. We're just to call it down the middle and help people learn the game. That's definitely a part of it. That Hurts is certainly a part of why the offense has not been as good. But we want to see the space creation. That you see what Kyle Shanahan does. Sirianni refuses to do pre-snap motion. He does very little of it. Why are they a bottom 5 team in pre-snap motion? Yeah, it worked last year. Why don't you do more of it this year since the offense is not clearly as good? I don't know why they're not doing that. So, Mike, I'd like to see them expand this now. The thing that you have to understand is you can't change the scheme in season. You have what you have. Brian Johnson has a menu of plays. You're right on the play selection. They got to look at some other things, but they're not going to call plays that they don't think Hurts can execute. And there's just some things they're not doing. And one more thing, A.J. Brown's facial expressions and coming off the field, you can see how frustrated he is, not talking to the media. You obviously have to understand that's coming from not getting the football. Let's call it like it is, and they're not doing as well as they should in offense. Everyone's frustrated, and they should be.
Yeah, Adam, before we move over to the defensive side and the issues they have for the Eagles, I want you to expand a little bit on those frustrations, right? Because we were debating about Nick Sirianni and his role in all of this and his role in the success and the Super Bowl run last year. So in your mind, Adam Caplan, what is Nick Sirianni's role in all of this? He doesn't call the plays. It's hard to put a finger on it, isn't it?
Well, he made a great decision, Ryan, 2 years ago, which definitely shocked a lot of people. It was not Jonathan Gannon's idea, as I understand it. It was actually Sirianni's idea, though he was taking input from his coaches, to give up the play calling when they were 2-5. That showed a lot. I mean, I was stunned by that. And I know someone who's no longer in their staff said to me that it was one of the best coaching decisions he's ever seen. Like someone in the first year to check their ego, and that showed me a lot. Now, he was phenomenal last year, keeping things together. He's a really good head coach, but here's the problem: they're not infallible. It's fair game to criticize the guy. The team is in a tank now. I've called it a crisis. There's no question they're at a crisis point. He is the head coach. This is his responsibility. They're clearly playing, Ryan, with a lack of confidence. That starts with the head coach. Yeah. I don't usually comment on press conferences because you have to be very careful of overdoing it. We sometimes overanalyze press conferences on Inside the Birds. We really talk about them because it's mostly a waste of time. Coaches don't always tell the truth, and unless something's egregious. Sirianni did not sound very confident in his I'm just evaluating the way he said it. I watched it and listened. They got to get their mojo back, guys. I don't know if they can, Ryan. On your point here, that's on the head coach. This guy's a good head coach, a very good head coach.
Right, because Adam, we were, what was his role in helping them get to the Super Bowl, and then what is he not able to do now that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird because he doesn't call the play, but there's other guy like Harbaugh doesn't call plays. So that's why we were trying to figure, like, it's almost unquantifiable what he does on game day.
Oh, it is, actually. Let me explain to you. When Tom Coughlin just never called plays, save for a couple of years when he felt he needed to. He got involved in it, but Tom Coughlin, as a so-called CEO head coach, once he settled down a little bit and stopped getting after his players as much as he was, the players' buy-in was so good, and Michael Strahan's talked about that. So he's managing the players and managing his coaches. He oversees the offense. It's his scheme. He also managed the coaches very well last season. It wasn't very easy. And remember, Shane Steichen was running his offense. So his role is to manage people and manage. Think about it. If he's a play caller, all you're doing. If he's a head coach and a play caller, he's Sean McVay. If Sean McVay gave up the play call and gave it to Mike LaFleur, are you going to say the guy's not a good head coach? It's ridiculous. That's a good head coach. But on your point, he's managing everybody, managing everything, and he's got to manage the general manager and his relationship with it, which, by the way, is very important because I can't imagine anyone's happy in the front office right now. But calls for Sirianni to be fired. I mean, you clearly don't understand football if you bring that stuff up.
All right.
3 years in the playoffs, made the Super Bowl last year, you want the guy fired? I mean, come on.
Well, all right.
Be smarter than that.
Let's flip over to the defense then, who have basically fired the coordinator once already. They hated the guy last year. The fans hated the guy last year. They brought in a new guy. He's already been demoted. The next guy has been worse. The defense has had their worst game of the season. What are some of the issues happening with this defense? Is it coaching or is it the players?
It's both. Mike, when you're down 5 starters and you didn't replace them with better players, of course you're going to be worse. Now, did I think they'd be this bad? No. This is embarrassing. This is one of the worst efforts. First of all, the gap control, you have to be where you're supposed to be. Guys were not tackling on air, missing, diving for tackles. How many plays did James Conner go through the scrum, go through the middle? Guys were there, and he went right through them. James Conner does not run a 4-3. That can't happen. Their missed tackle rate was terrible. And here's another one, guys. Does Josh Sweat still play for the Eagles? I haven't seen him in almost 2 months. Where's he been? And I'm a big Josh Sweat fan. Like, if you've heard our show, I've sung his praises forever. I think it's a great story. Where the heck has he been? I don't. The guys continue to disappear. Son Reddick not making the splash plays anymore. The lack of functionality, which means, do you know how many mistakes they made mentally last week, guys? You have any idea? It was embarrassing. And yes, the move to Patricia's been terrible so far. No pressure on the quarterback. They made Kyler Murray look like a Hall of Famer. It was an embarrassment. I don't usually go after teams like this, but this was so bad and so egregious. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at where they were, after the Miami game. You were feeling pretty good about where this defense was. They were very good against the run. They had slowed down Miami, and, that's where the drop it is taken against the run. Forget everything else. The back end has its issue, but teams are just running the ball right down your throat, and you're thinking, wait a second, I got Jordan Davis, I got Carter. What is up with the ability for teams to basically out-muscle you up front?
Here's another one. Greg Cosell gave us this great tip on our pregame show. He said that Jordan Davis, and we saw this last year, continues to get stood up, and he can't function. When you get stood up, you're not bending at all. You're not getting low. Low man wins in football. He's getting stood up too much. That's why he's not been as effective. He can't rush the passer yet. Jalen Carter's production has dropped off. He's not playing as well. They're not getting anything out of the – Milt Williams, by the way, is really good. I mean, he still shows up, but they're just – the personnel is not playing well, Mike, to answer your question. This part is not Sirianni's problem. This is a defensive problem. It's a personnel issue. Howie Roseman has got to look at, the GM. He's got to take a look at the talent that he's added here. No one thought it would be this bad, guys. And you're right, Mike. That Miami game was, with their high of the season, they were terrific. Now, Miami, by the way, a couple defensive starters out, but they did great. They shut down Tyreek Hill for the most part. Isn't it amazing? That was Sean Desai's best game. They've been downhill ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, quickly here before we let you run, just if we had to back you into a corner, so to speak, if you had to pick the bigger issue, offense or defensive side of the ball, which one is it right now?
Jeez.
Oh, defense by far. Not even close, yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny you say that, Ryan, because when we do our show tomorrow, we always do, big picture on a Wednesday show. And they're so bad, Ryan, on defense. Most likely, Mike, they're going to play Tampa Bay in the first round at Tampa, which would be a rematch of 2 years ago.
Yep.
Obviously, they played in week 3. But that's the most likely scenario. Tampa's not very good. They're very average. But the way that Mike Evans is having, the season that he's having, they have nobody could cover him. Darius Slay doesn't run as well anymore. And they don't play a ton of man. So that would worry me. Godwin is playing very well, no question about it. Trey Palmer's an exciting rookie out of Nebraska. Rashad White's good out of the backfield. That line would be interesting. And at this point, if you're someone who wagers on games, you might as well take the money line. Can you imagine if you would take the money line, the Cardinals, the money line? I don't know what it was. That'd be plus 400, I would think, plus 300 or 400.
Well, Adam, you're right. And we'll get into some more playoff scenarios. Tampa, there's some still possibilities in the South there, but right now it looks like a Philadelphia-Tampa Bay 4-5 matchup, which probably would be that Monday night game.
Yeah.
You would possibly see the
That'd
Eagles.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Monday night playoffs.
Yeah, and the thing I would add is, you know what the craziness of this is? One little other thing I'll talk about. If the Eagles win and they shock of Dallas losing and Detroit lost, that's the only way that the Eagles could get the number 2 seed. I know it's a long shot, but it's still alive. It's obviously a very long shot. But I just can't believe we had said. Mosher asked me this on our show a couple weeks ago. What could these final 3 games mean? I said it's a way for the Eagles to right the ship, to get confidence going. Can you imagine? Like I worked for the Eagles for 3 years. Andy's last 2 years and Chip Kelly's last year, which was a disaster. In no, was that Chip's first year? I'm sorry, 11 and 12. Andy's last 2 years and Chip's first year. I could tell you, working for the Eagles from a media standpoint in 2012, there were some times I did want to go in. They were so bad, everyone knew they were going to get fired. I mean, it's not quite obviously the same now. The Eagles are, still good, but they're not very good. They're not anywhere near where we thought they would be. This feels, though, so bad right now, guys. I know how coaches think, like, when they know they can't get things turned around, it's a bad feeling. I'm not saying these coaches feel that way, but we're getting close, guys. We're getting close. It's pretty bad right now.
Adam Caplan, the Inside the Birds podcast, you can get on all podcasting platforms, and don't forget their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam, we'll talk to you Friday, pal.
All right, guys, thanks.